It gets cold, it's a big house, and now there's only two of us, so I'm extremely careful not to heat it all. So, and I feel the cold terribly, so that was there. But the main motivation has always been to do with reducing CO2 emissions. That's been the driver. Every time a window needed replacing, it was obviously replaced with double glazed windows as the highest spec that was around at the time, and they're all wooden, and we chose to stick with that because of the look. The solar thermal, I think, is an obvious starting point because it's a relatively cheap thing to have installed compared with what you get out of it. It was relatively new. There weren't very many people who had it that I was aware of, and we opted for the newer technology, which at that stage, which were the evacuated tubes rather than the larger hot water systems, which I think at this latitude in this area in the southwest is probably sensible. And the following thing we did was to put PVs up, and that was before we seriously looked at insulation. I think it was a very good thing to do, actually, because the spin-off was that we were so much more careful with electricity usage. And that's often a side effect, I think, when people get PVs. They start watching what's going out as well as what's coming in. And that was very interesting. We saved an enormous amount in behavioural terms. We put it on the garage and shed, which is quite a large area. We've got a big array. It doesn't actually point quite in the right direction. It would be wonderful if it was pointing south. To optimise what you can get out of that rather poor position, they're much more towards the horizontal than normal. They use not just direct light, they use the white light when you've got white cloud. And in fact, the best output we've ever had from them has been a day when, you know, in midsummer with white cloud everywhere and very bright. And that was actually higher than in full sunshine, which is interesting. Though it does only make about 2/3 of the output of electricity as it would if they were facing south. They're not perfect, but then, you know, if they weren't there, they wouldn't produce any, would they? And it's still 2.5 megawatt hours a year, which is not bad. I kept thinking that really we should do something about the walls, but we have solid walls. So it's obviously not a simple thing to do. In the process of finding out more, we did get a very detailed audit done. And that audit simply said very loud and clear where the heat losses were, and it simply shouted walls at us, you know. Do the walls. This is a 1925 house. It's got various features inside and out, which would be complicated and expensive to work round with insulation. And the real clinching argument from the technical point of view seemed to us to be that having a breathable surface seemed to me obviously a good thing.
The beauty of it is it's a breathable system, so you don't trap any moisture in the masonry. It can make its own way out. It's made from wood fibre. You fix it directly to the masonry wall. Use special screws with a thermal break on them so that they've got plastic heads. You don't get cold bridging. Then you put the base coat, which is you put on with a toothed trowel, and then you press on polypropylene mesh onto that. You fill in the holes, and that represents the first coat. And then when that's dried out, and it has to be dried out properly, you can apply the top coat, which can be a granular finish in different grits. So it can be a fine grain or a coarse grain finish.
In putting it on, they had to replace the sills on the windows, remove the old stone sills and recast them, but that looks okay. They had to move all the pipe work. They had to extend the roof at this part of the house because it didn't overhang at all. So they had to extend that, which again worked fine, put extra tiles in. I feared that it would make a difference to how much light got into the windows because they're obviously effectively more recessed. Actually, I haven't noticed that. There hasn't been a problem at all. Because it was external, the disruption was negligible. Dust in the drive, and that's about it, really. You know, it didn't affect life in the house at all, whereas I think the internal would have been a major issue. When we started off all of this, we started with the solar thermal and had 4 quotes back in 2005. They varied at that stage between 4,200 and 2,800, I think it was. Was it 2,400? Anyway, huge difference for basically the same thing. We were very impressed with the company we used, who happened to be the cheapest, but were also very good, very local. That was another thing, going for local people.